Grimm's Fairy Tales, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, retold by Ken Mildo. Table of Contents. Story 1. Little Red Riding Hood. Story 2. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Chapter 1. The Dwarf's House. Chapter 2. The Queen's Trip. Story 3. Bearskin. Chapter 1. The Devil and the Soldier. Chapter 2. The Merchant's Daughters. Story 4. Rapunzel. New Words. Playlet. Story 1. Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there was a little girl whose name was Little Red Riding Hood. Everyone loved her, but her grandmother loved her the most of all. The grandmother made a red hood for her, and that is how Little Red Riding Hood got her name. One day, Little Red Riding Hood went to see her grandmother. She lived in a small house in the forest. As she walked through the forest, she met Mr. Wolf. "Good morning, little girl," he said. "Where are you going on this fine day?" "I'm going to see my grandmother," Little Red Riding Hood said. I'm taking her some cakes." "That's a nice thing to do," Mr. Wolf said. "Do you have far to walk?" "Not far," Little Red Riding Hood said. "Does your grandmother live near here?" Mr. Wolf asked. "Yes," Little Red Riding Hood said. "She lives in a small house at the end of this path." "That's very interesting," Mr. Wolf said, and ran off toward Red Riding Hood's grandmother's house. He came to her house and knocked on the door. "Who is it?" the old lady called. "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood," Mr. Wolf said. "I have some cakes for you." The old lady opened the door. Immediately, Mr. Wolf ran into the house and ate the old lady. Then he put on her clothes and got into her bed. Soon Little Red Riding Hood came to her grandmother's house and knocked on the door. "Hello, Granny," she called out. "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood." "Come in, dear," a voice said. Granny's voice sounds strange, Little Red Riding Hood thought. "Your voice sounds strange, Granny," she said. "That's because I got a cold, dear," the voice said. Little Red Riding Hood went to her grandmother's house. She thought she saw her grandmother lying in bed, so she went up to her. "Hello, grandmother," she said. "I'm sorry you're not feeling well, but what big ears you now have." "I can hear you better with big ears," Mr. Wolf said. "And you got big eyes, too." Yeah. Little Red Riding Hood said, "I can see you with better eyes," Mr. Wolf said. "And you got a big mouth now, too," Little Red Riding Hood said. "I can eat you better with a big mouth," Mr. Wolf said, and he jumped out of bed and swallowed Little Red Riding Hood. Then he lay down and went to sleep. As he slept, he snored loudly. Soon a woodcutter came to the cottage. He had some wood for the old lady's fire. He heard them snoring, so he opened the door and looked inside. He saw Mr. Wolf asleep on the bed. He is so full of food that he won't wake up. Perhaps he ate the old lady, the woodcutter thought. I won't shoot him. I'll cut him open. Perhaps the old lady is alive inside him. The woodcutter cut open Mr. Wolf. Immediately, Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother jumped out of the wolf's belly. I was so afraid, Little Red Riding Hood said. It was very dark in there, and it smelled bad. I was afraid too, the old lady said. Then she asked the woodcutter, What will you do to Mr. Wolf? I shall fill his belly full of stones, he said. Then when he wakes up, he won't be able to move. He'll never be able to eat again, and he'll die. The woodcutter filled Mr. Wolf's belly with stones. Then Little Red Riding Hood, her grandma, and the woodcutter sat down together and ate the cakes. When Mr. Wolf woke up, he jumped out of bed, but the stones in his belly were so heavy he fell to the floor. He lay there until he died. Story 2: Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, there was a queen who had a very beautiful little girl. She loved her daughter very much and called her Snow White. Sadly, the queen died. Later, the king married again. The new queen believed that she was the most beautiful woman in the land. She believed that because her mirror told her so. Every day, the new queen looked at herself in the mirror and asked, Tell me, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest woman of them all? And the mirror always answered, You, my queen, are the fairest of them all. Then one day when the new queen asked the mirror the question, it replied, Snow White is the fairest of them all. The queen became very angry. She now hated Snow White because she was so beautiful. The queen did not want anyone to be more beautiful than she was. One day, she said to one of her guards, Take this girl into a forest and kill her. Do this for me and I will make you a rich man. The guard took Snow White into a forest. However, he was not a bad man and did not kill her. I cannot kill you, Snow White, he said, but you must not go home. If you do, the queen will find someone who will kill you. He left Snow White in the forest and went back to the queen. Is the girl dead? The queen asked him. Yes, God said. I'm buried. No one will ever find her. In the forest, Snow White was afraid. She did not know what to do or where to go. She walked and walked and walked until she came to a little house. She went into the house. In the house there was a little table with 7 little chairs. On the table there were 7 little plates and 7 little cups. By the side of each plate there was a little knife and a little fork. Give me a minute, please. Thank you. each plate there was a piece of bread, a piece of meat, and a potato. Snow White was very hungry, so she ate some of the bread, some of the meat, and one of the potatoes. In a corner of a room there were 7 little beds. Snow White was very tired, so she lay down on one of the beds. The small bed was not comfortable, so she lay down on each of the beds until she came to the 7th. The bed was comfortable, so she lay down on it and soon fell asleep. When the sun went down, 7 dwarfs came into the little house. It was their home. They lit 7 little candles and the room was full of light. They looked around the room. "Someone sat in my chair," the first dwarf said. "Someone drank out of my cup." The second dwarf said, "Someone used my knife and fork." This third dwarf said, "Someone ate my meat." The fourth dwarf said, "Someone ate my potato." The fifth dwarf said, "Someone ate my bread." The sixth dwarf said. Then the 7th dwarf looked toward his bed and saw Snow White sleeping there. "Someone is in my bed," he said. He ran toward the girl and said, "Oh, it's a beautiful little girl. Come and look." The dwarfs came to the bed and looked at Snow White. They kept her very quiet because they did not want to wake her. The next day when Snow White woke up, the first dwarf said to her, "You may stay here if you like." Snow White replied, "Yes, thank you. I have no place to stay." "Yes, thank you. I have no place to stay." "You must cook and clean for us," the second dwarf said. "I'm happy to do that," Snow White said. Snow White lived happily with the 7 dwarfs until one day the queen looked in her mirror again and asked, "Who is the fairest woman of them all?" "Snow White is the fairest woman of them all," the mirror told her, and the queen knew that Snow White was not dead. "I must find the girl and kill her myself." The queen thought, "I'll dress as a poor woman and pretend to sell pots and pans." She did this and went into the forest. She soon came to this little house. She stood outside and shouted, "Pots and pans for sale! Pots and pans for sale!" The Snow White was inside the house and heard the woman. She opened the door and the woman quickly ran in. She tied Snow White up and the girl could not breathe. "Now I am the fairest woman of all," the queen said and left Snow White lying on the floor. When the 7 dwarfs came home from work, they saw Snow White tied up and lying on the floor. "Is she dead?" the first dwarf asked. "I think she is breathing," the second dwarf said. "Untie her quickly," the third dwarf said. The dwarfs untied Snow White and now she could breathe again. She told them about the woman who was selling pots and pans. She was the wicked queen. One of the dwarfs said, You must not let anyone into the house when we are not here." When the queen got home, she asked the mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest woman of them all?" "Snow White is the fairest of them all," the woman said. The woman was very, very, very angry. She knew that Snow White was still alive, This time I will make sure she is dead, she said to herself. She took some apples and filled them in poison. She pretended to be a farmer's wife and went to the little house in the forest. She knocked on the door. Snow White stuck her head out the window. What do you want? She called. I've brought you some apples from my farm, the Queen said. I can't let you into the house. Snow White said, I don't want to come in. The Wicked told her, I only want to give you some apples. My friends, the dwarfs, told me not to take anything from the strangers. Snow White said, There's nothing wrong with these apples. The Wicked Queen said, Look, I'll eat half and you can eat half. She ate half of the apple and gave the other half to Snow White. Only this half had poison in it. Snow White thought, I'm sure it is safe to eat the half. She bit into the apple and immediately fell down. She was dead. The Wicked Queen ran home to her mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest woman of them all? You, my queen. You are the fairest of them all, the mirror answered. That night when the dwarfs came home, they found Snow White lying on the floor. Oh no, the first dwarf said. Snow White is really dead now. She is not breathing. We must bury her, the second dwarf said. We must first make her a coffin, the third dwarf said. Let us make a glass coffin, and the fourth dwarf said. Then we could look at her for a while. She is still very beautiful. The dwarfs made a glass coffin for Snow White and put her in it. They wrote her name on the side of the coffin. They said she was She was a princess. Soon after they put Snow White into her coffin, a prince came by. He saw the coffin and looked inside. Immediately he fell in love with Snow White. Let me take her away, he told the dwarfs. I want to look at her as long as I live. As long I live. The dwarfs let the prince have the coffin. As her servants was lifting it, Snow White's body moved a little in the coffin. The piece of the poisoned apple in her throat fell out. Immediately she opened her eyes. Where am I? Why am I in this glass box? You are with me, the prince said. And I love you. I want to marry you. Snow White went home with the prince and married him. They lived happily ever after. Story 3. Bearskin. Once upon a time, a poor soldier was walking along the road when he met the devil. Where are you going? The devil asked him. I don't know, the soldier said. I really have nowhere to go. The war is over, and the king does not want me now. Do you have any money? The devil asked him. No, I do not know what to do for work. I am a soldier. I only know how to fight. I will make you a rich man, the devil said. But if you die within 7 years, I shall take your soul. What must I do for the 7 years? The soldiers asked. Look behind you quickly, the devil said. The soldier turned around. A large bear was running toward him. The soldier raised his rifle and shot the bear. Good, the devil said. Now cut off the bear's skin and put it on. You must Wear it for 7 years. You must not take a bath. You must not cut your beard, and must not cut your hair." "How will I live?" the soldier asked. The devil was wearing a green coat. He took it off and he gave it to the soldier. "There is a pocket in the coat," he said. "Put your hand in this pocket." The soldier put his hand in the pocket. It's full of gold," he said. "Yes. You can spend as much as you like. The pocket will stay full of gold. And don't forget, you must not take off the bearskin, you must not have a bath, and you must not cut your beard or your hair if you are still alive in 7 years." "Time, I will make you rich. If you die before then, I shall take your soul," the devil said. With these words, the devil vanished, and the soldier started walking. At the end of the first year, he smelled bad, but he did not look ugly. At the end of the second year, he smelled very bad and looked ugly. At the end of the third year, he was covered in hair and smelled very bad indeed. Wherever he went, people moved away from him. The soldier was very lonely and very unhappy. But he was not poor. The pocket of the green coat was always full of gold. During the fourth year, he met an old man. The old man was sitting side by side, but by the side of the road. He was crying. When the soldier walked up to him, the old man jumped off and ran off. "Come back!" So the soldier shouted. "Whatever is the matter? Perhaps I can help you." The old man was afraid of this hairy, bad-smelling creature. He did not want to go near him. "I'm a man, not an animal." The soldier said, "I have a reason for being like this. Tell me what is the matter. If you need money, I can help you." The old man walked toward the soldier. He held his nose between his fingers. "I do not want to be rude, but you really do smell bad. When did you last take a bath?" He said, 4 years ago." The soldier said, "Now tell me, what is the matter?" "I was a merchant," the old man said. "I sold many things and was rich. Now my shop caught fire. It burned to the ground. Now I have nothing to sell. And I have 3 daughters to feed." The soldier took some gold out of his pocket and gave it to the old man. "Take this. I have more than I need," he said. The old man was very grateful. "Come home with me," he said. "You may marry one of my daughters." The soldier thought for a moment. "I am very lonely," he thought. "I could marry and talk to my wife." "Very well," he said. "I will come home with you and marry one of your daughters." The old man sent a message to his daughters. "I am bringing home a rich man," the message said. "I promised him he can marry one of you." When they got the message, the 3 daughters put on the best message. They made themselves look as beautiful as they could. Later that day, the merchant and soldier arrived at the merchant's home. The 3 daughters were standing in the doorway waiting for them. The 2 eldest daughters took one and looked at the soldier and ran into the house screaming, "Don't let that animal in! We won't marry such a man!" they screamed. "I'm sorry," the merchant and the soldier. I can't make them marry you. I'll marry him, the youngest daughter said. You made him a promise. I must help you keep that promise. You are a very good girl, the soldier said. I will go away for 3 years. When I come back, I will look and smell much better. Please wait for me. He took a ring off his finger and cut the ring in half. He gave the youngest daughter half of the ring and put the other half in his pocket. Then he went away. For 3 years, the soldier walked about the country. He gave money to the poor and made many people happy. Sadly, he got hairier and hairier and smelled worse and worse. At last, the 7 years were over, and the devil came to him. I am still alive. The soldier told the devil, make me clean and keep your promise. The devil was very angry, but he kept his promise. He washed the soldier and cut his hair and beard. Then the soldier put on new clean clothes. He looked very handsome. Now, I will go back to the merchant's house. He thought and married a good girl. He went to the merchant's house and knocked on the door. The merchant opened it. He saw the soldier but did not know who he was. He saw a handsome man who was wearing fine clothes. The soldier did not tell the merchant who he was. Instead he said, You have 3 daughters. Are they married? No, the merchant said. None of them is married. Good. The soldier said, I am looking for a wife. May I meet your daughters? Please come in, the merchant said. Eat with us. The soldier ate a meal with the merchant and his 3 daughters. The 2 eldest tried to make him like them. The youngest daughter just looked down at the floor. She did not even speak to the soldier. Why won't your youngest daughter look at me? The soldier asked the merchant. Why won't she speak to me? She promised not to marry another man, the merchant said. She does not want you or any other man to show interest in her. The soldier smiled. He took half of the ring out of the pocket and put it on the table in front of the girl. Do you have the other half of this ring? He asked the girl. Yes, I do, she said. She took a ribbon around her neck and the other half of the ring on the ribbon. I am the man you are waiting for, the soldier said. He married the merchant's youngest daughter and they lived happily together. Story 4. Rapunzel. Many years ago, there was a married couple who wanted to have a child. I am not a happy woman, though you are a good man and a good husband, but I want a child. I shall not be happy until I have one, the woman told her husband. I'm sorry, my dear. We have not been lucky, but perhaps we shall have more luck in the future, the husband said. The years passed, but the couple did not have a child. The couple lived in a house next to a witch in her garden. The witch grew a wonderful vegetable called a rampion. The man's wife often took some of the rampion. She liked to eat it more than any other vegetable. You mustn't take the witch's rampion, her husband told her. You will make her angry. But his wife did not listen. She was unhappy because she did not have a child. She ate the rampion to feel better. I must have rampion every day, she told her husband. I cannot live without it. Then I will speak to the witch. It is wrong for you to steal from me. Perhaps you will give us some, or let me buy some. The man spoke to the witch. I will let your wife have as much champion as she wants. But when she has a child, she must give the child to me. I will look after it as if it were my own. I shall never have a child, the wife told her husband. So let's do what the witch wants. So she was able to have rampion every day. However, a year later, she had a child, a beautiful baby girl. As soon as the witch heard the baby crying, she came to the woman. I will take that child, she said. You agreed to give me a child if I let you have my rampion. She took the child away and called Rapunzel, which another word for rampion. Rapunzel was a beautiful child who grew into an even more beautiful young woman. For the time, the witch took good care of her, but when Rapunzel turned 16, she locked her in a room at the top of the tower. There was no door to this room. It had only one small window. Sadly, the witch no longer took good care of Rapunzel. She left her alone in the tower. As Rapunzel grew, so did her hair. It grew and grew and grew and grew. Every day, Rapunzel spent hours combing her hair. Soon it was so long that it reached the ground. When the witch wanted to speak to Rapunzel, she shouted, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. Rapunzel then put her head out of the window and let down her hair. As soon as it touched the ground, the witch climbed up to it. One day a young prince came by the tower. He looked up and saw Rapunzel's beautiful face in the window. Oh, what a beautiful girl, he thought. I must get to know her. Come down, he thought. Let us talk together. I can't come down, Rapunzel shouted. There is no door and I do not have a ladder, but you can come up. Rapunzel let her hair down and the prince used it to climb. Soon he was in the tower with Rapunzel. Come away with me, he said. We will get married. I would like to. Rapunzel said, but how can I get down? Then she had an idea. Bring me silk every time you come, she said. I will spin it into a rope. Many days passed. Slowly, the silken rope became longer. Then one day, Rapunzel, who was beautiful but not very clever, said to the witch, why is it that you are much heavier than the prince who comes every day? You wicked girl, the witch said. I shall put a stop to that. And with these words, she cut off Rapunzel's hair. Now I will take you into the desert and leave you there. You will soon die. She took the girl into the desert and left her there. She then went back to the tower and waited for the prince. When he came, he let down the silken rope. The rope climbed up to the tower, and when he came to the window, he saw the witch's ugly face. He was so surprised that he let go of the rope and fell to the ground. You'll never find Rapunzel alive, the witch shouted at him. She's in the desert. By the time you find her, she'll be dead. The prince, who was not badly hurt, rode away. He looked everywhere for Rapunzel. Then at last, When many years later he found her, she was alive and had twin sons, but she was very thin and ill. I am now king, the prince said. You shall be my king, and our two sons shall be princes. He married Rapunzel, and they lived happily together. The end. It is the final moment to take the quiz. Firstly, we will take the quiz. Let's go. Questions are 5. Let's go. Why didn't the guard kill Snow White? Because he was not a bad man. What was Snow White's coffin made of? It was made of glass. What did the woodcutter put in the wolf's belly? Stones. What was Little Red Riding Hood taking her grandmother? Cakes. What did the wolf do after he ate Red Riding Hood? He went to sleep. Right book. A little too difficult, maybe because I combined some of the stories. Let's write my review. A little too difficult, but very lovely and enjoying stories. Maybe because there was combined stories, but it was okay. Submit.